All right, we're doing a little bit of a velvet demo. I'm kind of using this research image on the right, but hoping to pull off the style of the image on the left for you. So I've done a very quick sketch. What I do notice about the image for the style, the left-hand image from the game, is that it has a very high contrast level. It has that beautiful like highlight that has texture to it, and it's got a lot of brush strokes exposed. So we're going to start by basing our entire dress with our highlight, our toned highlight color. Not unlike how we did for iridescent skirts when we did those in watercolors. It's easier to broaden from your highlight than to broaden from your shadow in this case, in my opinion. Also, you can hear Yuki, sorry. So I'm using a bit of Payne's Gray to start blocking in some of our shadows. Payne's Gray is just a navy blue in my kit, but it has a nice density while still remaining cold. I've got a bit of gel medium in this while I'm doing it, so it's not super punchy and it blends a little nicer. I can feather out an edge. So I've gone ahead and dried those layers together. Yay. We're going to start actually doing some of the shaping. So I'm using a Prussian blue as my base for this. It's got a nice amount of like primary blue qualities. Doesn't have too much in it, but if it leans one way or the other, it's probably towards purple. And it also layers up and gets really dark quickly, which is useful. So when doing velvet, the things that you'll notice is there's higher reflection qualities stacked close together, and they always sort of look like bars. They're kind of angular, but soft transitions. That's how I think of it, at least. A silk velvet would have a higher angularness because it's actually higher reflective. So I'm keeping my brush moving vertically, following the build of the skirt, the structure as it swings out. And I'm allowing some of the brush strokes to show through. It's not an overly blended style based on what I'm seeing on the research image you gave me. You can see where that Prussian blue layers over the Payne's Gray. We get a nice deep shadow. I've also mixed some of them together to create the darkest side of this on the far right hand. You could also mix some green into it to help it tilt a little darker if you wanted. So we're going to look at capturing the feeling of these like kind of split up shadows that show that there's multiple wrinkles there, but we're also simplifying it a bit to be more like your stylistic image. So it may not have as many small folds as it would if we were doing complete realism, but we want the effect of that. I also use thin layers with some gel medium in them to just like tone whole areas and bring contrast down, knowing that I can go ahead and add those back in if I want to with some of our highlight tones. So now that I've got that gel medium layer down, using the highlight on top of it pretty thick on my brush with just a little bit of gel medium in that as well, you can see it just sort of like automatically blends, has a nice soft texture to it. Exaggerating some of the light in this is helpful also. And just sort of working that balance in, getting some blended edges on what is our highlight and our midtones, bridging that gap. So we're going to go ahead and dry this layer in just a minute and return to do final highlights. Fully admit that I started doing these, realized I had not turned my camera on and then wiped it, so that's why there's smears in the background, my apologies. One thing you can do for these is use a white colored pencil or a pale blue colored pencil. That's an easy option. It works really well. Of course, you can also use white paint. I've got water and a bit of gel medium in this white to keep it kind of translucent, and I can start sculpting those. We're going with the style here, which is a much more exaggerated highlight headed towards pure white. So we're pushing it. I also noticed that there are some stippling, like dappled light effects on the shadows and highlights of this. So if you add in some water, you can do some like stippled dropped textured highlights, and that will help you create the stylistic effect. If you don't like them, since they're wet on top of dry, you can always pick them up with a rag. You can also use like a paint pen or something like that if you want something a little punchier, depending on what you're working on and how high contrast you can see, like, think the shine would be. Bumping a couple shadows just a little darker for that final layer. Oh, and accidentally dipping it in white. Thank God it wipes up. And I hope that helps. Good luck.